Good afternoon. This is John Bushka. Today I want to play for you or read for you a screenplay I wrote for an assignment in Tyler Mowry's practical screenwriting class. 6 pages. It had to be include a fight between four characters, the four corners, protagonist, antagonist, and then fake opponent and fake ally. I called it Lineage. And let's get into it, and I'll show you some pictures and some music. Okay. Status quo. Interior hospital bay in the international base on Titan in the evening. Chris, about 30, very tall and a frat boy, with a frat boy look, even in a space business suit, helps Bill, very elderly, out of the hospital bed. There's a view of the surface of Titan from the room, the dark methane lake, cliffs, a lighted tower, an enormous spindly structure stretching into the sky with a long tethered chain leading up to a metallic Horus, a spaceship. Above that spinning section of a gigantic O'Neill cylinder, Bill tries to look at the distant tower. Now I'll show you a few pictures. There's the public domain NASA picture of the surface of Titan from the Cassini in 2005, the Cassini-Huygens. That's the tower I'm going to use. That's at Point Lookout, Maryland. There's a refrigerator at a restaurant in Boston, and it looks like an antique. And they're at the same place. That's some space. It's a punch bowl social. That's some space stuff on display. There's the tower at Point Lookout. It's kind of blocked with the building. That's the Tower of Ned, and I'll call it that was a Dyson Cellular toy, and then some views of the point. That's the surface of the moon at a museum in Baltimore, the Astronomy Museum. I visited in 2014, but the surface of Titan might look like that. There's more Point Lookout. There's another tower in Provincetown, Massachusetts. So let's get back here. Bill tries to look at the distant tower, and in here means this is a new section, some new stuff that I added since it was read in the screenwriting group. Bill, as a little boy, I once dreamed of being ordered, do not go near the Tower of Ned. Chris, we rode through some slime mold mesh to get to it. Good that you missed out on it. Bill, I guess I have to be allowed to miss something. Chris, okay, I'll escort you to the Taurus while the residents of the college watch a final concert. I feel well enough for the concert. That's up to me. I still think you need to keep your distance from the principals. Chris helps Bill into a wheelchair through some airlocks and tunnels, and they ride up to the chute of the Taurus. Part two, the one. That's for the protagonist, who's me. Interior Taurus waiting room later. Chris leads Bill to a single room where there are a few chairs and a cot held in place by some artificial gravity with some Coriolanus effect, by the way, as the Taurus has its own rotational plane. There's a widescreen TV where Bill can watch something in the O'Neill cylinder. There's also a refrigerator, that antique I showed you from the Punch Bowl Social a minute ago. Okay, you listen to the refrigerator cycles. At some point, after a 30-minute rest, the defroster comes on. When it stops, you can come up to the room by the tram to the recital room in the cylinder. Bill, old-fashioned stuff from the dark days of the pandemic. That's when I had refrigerator problems and it was difficult, although they fix themselves. Difficult to get help if you needed anything during when we had the lockdowns. Chris, that's the way it has to be because I want it my way. Every colony needs its dictator. Bill, somehow the child has to be mine. In the end, it's going to be like the ring, where Frodo says the ring is mine. Remember that? So he's going to have a child, but by proxy. This is all based on, by the way, on a screenplay called Second Epiphany, which I registered in May of 2021. There's the registration certificate. And some of the stories from my book, Do Ask, Do Tell book, of what happened to me in my life with the gays in the military and the expulsion from are embedded in it. Also, some substitute teaching stuff are embedded in the story when I'm abducted and taken to an O'Neill cylinder in outer space. Um, and so this is a possible ending for that, although this is a variation from what happens and what actually happened happens actually in the screenplay I registered. Entrance. Chris gets off the tram and views the scenery of the inside of the cylinder with several separate communities separated by artificial fields, hills, and streams, with a tram railroad running around them and some ordinary paved roads. Remember what the O'Neill cylinders look like in Interstellar? Brian and Jamie, both in their early 20s, accompany him along with Davina, who's Bill's partner, assigned female partner, and she's sort of ageless. Chris, you all know the deal. Actually, she's a reappearance of a girl I dated one time before I came out back in the 70s. She's made ageless. Okay, Chris, you all know the deal. We want to give Bill his progeny now before you go back to Earth and then take off for Proxima B. I think he'll make it. I think Elon Musk ought to aim for Proxima B rather than just Mars myself. Interior auditorium in Village 2000 of the O'Neill cylinder. The O'Neill cylinder in the screenplay is divided into separate communities where the people live in at various stages of technology. That's just an idea, isn't it? Chris sits on a stage with Brian and Jamie along with Elmo, who then walks over to sit in an old upright piano. He plays the scale theme just to test the piano sound, which sounds like it's tuned in just intonation. And here I want to play it for you. And it's a little bit tricky to play my own YouTube site. Okay, that's the theme. That's actually my first piano sonata, which I composed when I was 13, back around 1956. Okay, here it is on page 3. Chris, you all know what to expect. You'll enjoy one last piano concert by Elmo. Then we'll single file and board the tram to the Taurus, and then board the spaceship to go back to Earth for a month or so before this last days. We all know what's coming for them. They don't. Chris, we'll load about 1,000 more colonists from the Lake of the Woods in Minnesota when we're there. Some of us will have taken on special roles. Both actors and cadets can graduate to angels eventually. But actors like Jamie here have the responsibility for living inside someone's head. That'll be your head, Bill. That takes more personal transformation. I don't think I showed you the objects. Here's a space from the Smithsonian, a spaceship, and another one I wanted to show these. And a man in a spacesuit, although really we're inside the O'Neill cylinder. You wouldn't need to wear one. And also the Lake of the Woods where it's going to land. This is Manitoba. In 2001, I actually drove here. You drive a rental dirt road into above the Lake of the Woods. You're still in Minnesota. That's the northernmost place in Minnesota along the 49th parallel. And then If you later on in the story, you'll wind up in Grand Marais, Minnesota, which is on Lake Superior. But let's get back to the screenplay. Inside the tourist waiting room later, and refers to new stuff I added since the reading. Okay. Bill watches the concert start over. That's TV in this tourist room. Bill, that's my sonata scale theme. I've already just played that. Chris, don't start talking. Know your place. Elmo plays Bill's sonata as broadcast on the TV in the tourist room. The fridge cuts off and the cycle starts. That was the sort of the museum artifact I showed you from the restaurant, from the Punch Bowl Social Irons, and it looks like an old antique fridge. Um, the defroster compressor it starts as the sonata concludes, but after another hour, it hasn't stopped. There's a spark, a flame, and a little smoke around the base of the fridge. Now, refrigerator fires are very rare. There was a big one in Britain one time, that building that had the cladding on it, but it is possible to happen, and it's in a high-rise building, it would be a serious thing if it ever happened. Particularly if you didn't have good service because of something like a pandemic or something. It could be a serious danger. Um, so Bill decides to uh, make a little bit, to take a risk and not do quite what he was sold. He hobbles, which is another choice, by the way, in terms of screenwriting. Bill hobbles up, walking without the wheelchair, but using a crutch. He is surprised he can negotiate out of the tram monorail station. He takes a train. Now the intermediate choices in terms of the Harmon Circle. This is part 4 of the 8 parts of the Harmon Circle. Bill hobbles onto one more train, reaching a station near the concert auditorium. Brian stands between Jamie and Tovina, who is seated on a couch in the waiting area, bouncing a little as the artificial gravity is weaker. Jamie approaches and stands in front of Brian. Um, Brian's a little more swarthy than Jamie is in his appearance, but Brian shakes his head. He moves back and Tovina and starts touching her, kissing her. Bill, good, Brian, the hero cadet. You just want her for yourself. Yeah. Here, Brian has decided he wants to have Tovina and himself rather than work on Jamie, who's actually supposed to be the substitute father for me. Brian, it's all just natural instinct, my friend. Tovina makes only a minimal effort to fend Brian off. Here's the fight scene. Not quite Fight Club, but it's still a fight scene. Bill hobbles toward them and sticks the crutch, that's his crutch, into Brian's face, knocking out a tooth. Brian's mouth bleeds. The blood flails as it falls down due to unstable artificial gravity. I never fought anyone in my life. Chris now jumps into the area. There's always a first time. Chris restrains Bill himself and pushes away Jamie. He steadies Bill, standing on his crotch. Brian, there's another idea. You can really switch sides. Brian backs away. He walks back toward the entrance where he's laid down a knapsack. Brian pulls out a bottle of cream. Sort of like Nair. He creeps up behind Jamie, holds Jamie in a full Nelson with one arm, unbuttons Jamie's suit with the other, exposing one isolated wad of chest hair, and applies the cream to his chest, and then removes the shirt and drives Jamie off with a towel. The chest is smooth. He could apply a laser if he wanted to. That would really be provocative. I could have said that. Tovina lies back with the soda, and Jamie then forces relations with her. She does not resist. Part 5, the goal found, double question mark, like a chess game. Has Bill found his goal now? He has this surrogate child now and would be eligible to go on the rescue mission later. Bill continued, it feels good to be young and strong again, and a father. Brian, a pseudo-bad by replacement with a false idol. Like idol worship in the Bible, maybe. Part 6, the surprise problem. That's a Harmon circle of this. Chris, mission accomplished, but Bill, you have to stay in the Taurus here. The others can board the spaceship. Jamie will take your place for a month when you would have been in Minnesota. Tovina will have to raise the baby on Earth with what's left of it. She'll have to come later on a rescue mission. Now, the Earth has had an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse attack in a world war, so most of its electricity generation has gone forever, essentially. Bill starts to kneel, and suddenly his legs collapse underneath him as he's crushed. He lies on the floor. Okay, Jamie, you know my contacts in Grand Marais. That place will be relatively safe from the Russian EMPs. Jamie, there's only one way I can really become you when I'm back on Earth. Bill, do your own thing. Part 7, the critical choice. Chris leads both Jamie and Brian away from the crowd. Chris, you two have made amends for Brian, like I have to let him do me. Bill, you can give Jamie a way to reciprocate. You should film it for me. Chris pulls the Sony ZV camera out of his own pack and gives it to Jamie. To Venum, you'll have to wait for them until the end. Jamie comes with you to Earth and Minnesota again. Looking forward to this now. Chris, Brian doesn't have to look to come through. He came in second. And Bill, I don't think you want to see him as you wait, left behind. If you live long enough, you might see Proxima B yourself. Otherwise, you'll just have to become Jamie. Sort of switching bodies and having the same consciousness is the idea here in that screenplay, Second Epiphany. Part 8, the final disposition. Exterior in northern Minnesota safe house day. Davina breastfeeds her new son, Jonathan. Jamie is Bill. They're one person out, but it's Jamie's body attends. Jamie, I attended the loss of our modern world my whole life. I dreaded the loss of the modern world our whole life. Davina, preparation isn't so bad. We lived like a century ago until the ship returns. You know, I paid Brian off to become Bill, to make him the husband and father. Davina, oh, stop. Jamie takes out a Casio from his old backpack and one little battery. I saved this. He plays a video where Brian mounts him and pulses. So Jamie had to had to be on the receiving end of Brian's energy, put it that way, the kind of R-rated material here. Davina, only Brian's body remained unscathed. Jamie, did you ever notice in the spaceship en route, after they boarded it again and it's en route back to Titan, and then eventually we'll go to Proxima B. Bill crawls along the floor of his cubicle without legs, so he's lost his legs. So he's just a shell of a man now. Chris, another day or so, your time, you'll see your wife bunk down. Bill, and what happens to Jamie? He was a great guy. Chris, what do you think or what? And that's the end. And those are the characters, the protagonist, opponent, false ally, and true ally. I actually have a crutch in this unit. I could have used that as a prop to showed it to you, but it's in the other room. I didn't think of doing that for the fight scene. But that's what I have today, and I'll be working on a short from my actual book, Do Ask to Tell book of the William and Mary stuff. And another, before too long, I hope I'll be able to present that. And I do thank you for listening.